You took my wife. You stole my life. Now you'll remember me.
I was heating up canned beans on a camping stove in a storage unit when I found the briefcase that changed everything. My name's Marcus Peterson, and 6 months before this moment, I had a complete life. A wife named Sarah, 2 kids named Jason and Emily, and a steady supervisor job at Blackwood Timber Company in Riverside, Pennsylvania, where I managed 40 men and kept operations running smooth. Now I'm staring at 50 grand in cash and coordinates pointing to somewhere in Montana with a note saying, "This is just travel money." What I discovered when I got there made me realize my entire existence had been orchestrated by people I never suspected. Let me explain how a man goes from Sunday dinners with his family to sleeping on a cot in a concrete box. How someone loses their wife to their boss, their kids to a rigged court system, and their dignity to a world that kicks harder when you're already down. The ending isn't what anyone expects because sometimes God or fate or whatever you believe in strips everything away so you can finally see what was always hidden underneath. Sarah always told me I was too trusting. She'd say it while stirring coffee at our kitchen table, claiming that thinking everyone is honest would bite me someday. Funny how the person warning you about snakes can be hiding fangs themselves. Derek Blackwood wasn't just my boss. He owned Blackwood Timber Company, the biggest employer in Riverside. His father built the business from nothing, and Derek inherited it along with expensive taste and a habit of taking what belonged to other men. I'd worked there 18 years, started loading trucks when I was 24, worked my way up to supervisor by 35. The sawdust never really comes out of your clothes, but I wore it like cologne because honest work has its own smell. My son Jason just made varsity football at 14, already taller than me and fighting his way through everything like he was born late for something important. My daughter Emily was 11 and smarter than both parents combined, always sitting in the garage while I worked on the car, handing me tools and asking a million questions about how engines worked. At least I thought she had 2 parents. Turns out she had 1 parent and 1 actress getting paid to play a role for money. But hitting rock bottom sometimes reveals things hidden your whole life. Sometimes a crazy uncle you barely knew leaves you more than money. He leaves you truth about why your father died when you were 5, and why certain people made sure you never asked questions. That briefcase was placed there by Uncle Raymond before he died, a Vietnam vet who everyone thought went strange after my father's mill accident. He moved to Montana, lived like a hermit, visited once yearly for Thanksgiving. Everyone called him paranoid and crazy. Turns out when you're right about everything, people call you crazy right up until they realize you were the sanest one all along. The storage unit still smelled like cigarettes from whoever rented it before me. February in Pennsylvania, and I'm heating beans on a camping stove bought at a pawn shop. Same place I sold my wedding ring for $40. The ring cost me $2,000. The marriage cost everything. But holding that cash and reading Raymond's note about my father's end not being an accident, I realized something important. Sarah texted saying I'd die poor and alone. She was wrong about the poor part. The alone part too, once my kids learned the truth. But the dying part, well, the old Marcus did die. The trusting fool who believed in love and loyalty and working hard for an honest living. That man died in a storage unit holding $50,000 and a letter that said everything I knew was a lie. Riverside sits 40 miles northeast of Pittsburgh, population 12,000 on a good day, built around Blackwood timber like a body around a spine. The mill whistle blows at 7, noon, and 5. You could set your watch by it, and most folks did. I'd heard that whistle my whole life, first as a kid when my father worked the floor, then as a teenager sweeping sawdust for summer cash, finally as the man running floor operations for 18 years. The sawdust never comes out completely, but I wore it like a badge because honest work has its own smell. Sarah loved that about me when we first met in high school. "You smell like fresh-cut wood," she'd say, burying her face in my work shirt when I got home. That was back when she was Sarah Driscoll, cheerleading captain with honey blonde hair and eyes that could make you forget your name. I was just Marcus, the kid working weekends at the mill with a beat-up Chevy needing a new muffler. We married right after graduation. Her parents thought she was settling, but Sarah claimed she loved me. Said she wanted the simple life, wanted to build something real with someone who knew what real work meant. We held our wedding reception at the VFW hall. Uncle Raymond gave a weird toast about watching for wolves in sheep's clothing. Everyone laughed nervously, blaming Vietnam. Now I understand he was trying to warn me even then. Our house on Maple Street wasn't fancy, but we made it ours. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen needing updates since 1982. The previous owner had painted every room beige, and we spent our first married year repainting everything. Sarah chose yellow for the kitchen, said it would catch morning sun. She was right. Every morning I'd drink coffee in that yellow kitchen, watching light make her hair glow while she packed Jason's lunch for school. Simple moments that felt perfect at the time. Jason arrived 2 years after we married, born during a snowstorm. Emily came 3 years later, peaceful as Sunday morning. Holding each of them for the first time, I thought I'd never felt anything so perfect. Jason got my stubborn streak and Sarah's athletic ability. Emily got Sarah's beauty and my love of fixing things. The lumber mill provided solid insurance, steady pay, enough for 2 weeks vacation every summer. We'd drive to Ocean City, rent the same cottage annually. Jason would build sandcastles while Emily collected shells. Sarah read romance novels under an umbrella while I taught the kids to body surf. Simple pleasures for simple people. Or so I believed. Derek Blackwood inherited the mill when his father died 10 years back. Old man Blackwood had been tough but fair. Derek was neither. He showed up maybe twice weekly, usually smelling like bourbon and expensive cologne. Let me handle actual operations while he took credit for profits he never earned. He had this way of looking at female employees that made my skin crawl. Should have paid attention when he started looking at Sarah that way during company picnics. My foreman Pete even mentioned it once, saying Derek couldn't keep his eyes off her during the summer barbecue. I laughed it off, trusted my wife, trusted that our marriage was solid. Big mistake. Uncle Raymond lived 3 hours north in a cabin he built himself after Vietnam. My father's younger brother, but war aged him into looking older. He'd arrive every Thanksgiving with conspiracy theories and warnings about trusting wrong people. They eliminated your daddy, Marcus, he'd say after a few beers. Made it look like an accident, but I know better. My mother would change the subject quickly. After she died when I was 20, Raymond got stranger, more isolated. Last time I saw him alive was Thanksgiving a year ago. He looked sick, thin, knowing, pulled me aside and handed me a key. For when you need it most, he said. Wouldn't explain further. I pocketed it and forgot about it until months later when everything fell apart. The warning signs with Sarah started small. New clothes costing more than we budgeted. Complaints about the house being too small. Vacation being boring. My salary being modest. Derek says there's opportunity for advancement, she'd mention casually over dinner. Maybe you should try harder impressing him. I thought she was helping me succeed. Now I know she was setting the stage for something planned long before she ever cheered at my football games in high school. That Thursday in March started normal until my foreman Pete noticed me sweating through my shirt around mid-morning. "Boss, you look like end warmed over," he said. "Go home before you infect the whole crew." I rarely took sick days. Maybe 3 in 18 years, but the room was spinning and my stomach felt like battery acid. I climbed into my truck at noon, skipping lunch, just wanting to crawl into bed. The drive home took 12 minutes. I remember counting them down, fighting not to pull over and throw up on the side of the road. Turning onto Maple Street, I saw Derek's Mercedes parked in my driveway. That silver S-Class costing more than I made in 2 years, sitting bold as brass next to Sarah's Honda. My first thought was maybe something happened at the mill. Maybe there'd been an accident and Derek came telling Sarah personally. That's what I told myself as I parked on the street and walked to my own front door. It was locked, which was strange. We never locked it during daytime in Riverside. Crime was practically non-existent in our neighborhood. I fumbled for keys, and that's when I heard it. Sarah's laugh coming from upstairs. Not her polite laugh, or TV laugh. The laugh I thought was just for me. The intimate one I'd heard thousands of times over 16 years of marriage. I stood in my hallway listening to my wife and boss in my bedroom. The smart thing would have been leaving, thinking it through, getting a lawyer first. But smart went out the window when you hear your life being destroyed above your head. I climbed those stairs I'd climbed 10,000 times, past school photos of Jason and Emily, past our wedding picture on the wall showing 2 young people who believed in forever. The bedroom door was half open. Derek sat on my side of the bed, putting on shoes. Sarah wore a silk robe I'd never seen before, something expensive that sure as hell didn't come from our budget. They discussed Paris casually, some restaurant with Eiffel Tower views, like they weren't destroying a family in the bed where my children were conceived. "Hello, Derek," I said from the doorway. You should have seen his face. For once, Derek Blackwood, who always had something clever to say, stood there speechless. He just grabbed his jacket and pushed past me without meeting my eyes. "We'll discuss this at work tomorrow," he muttered, like I was an employee interrupting a meeting instead of a husband catching him with my wife. Sarah didn't even try explaining. She sat at her vanity, the one I'd bought her for our 10th anniversary, and started brushing her hair with long, steady strokes. "How long?" I asked. "Does it matter?" she replied, kept brushing like we discussed weather. "Our kids sleep in this house, Sarah. My kids." She turned then, and her face was January cold, all pretense of warmth gone. "Your kids? You think Jason wants being like you, working himself to end for nothing? Emily is already smarter than you'll ever be. They deserve better than this." She waved her hand around our bedroom like it was a prison cell instead of the room we'd shared for 16 years. "Better? Like Derek? Derek's taking me to Europe next month, buying me a downtown condo, showing me what life can really be instead of this." She stood up, tightening the silk robe. "Look at yourself, Marcus. You're 42 years old and you've peaked. Supervisor at a lumber mill. Is that what you dreamed about as a kid? Is that the legacy you want leaving?" "I dreamed about having a family," I said quietly. "About raising good kids with the woman I loved." She laughed, but there was no joy in it, just cold amusement. "The woman you loved never existed." "I played a part, Marcus. I was good at it for a while, but I'm tired pretending this is enough." Next morning, I showed up to work like nothing happened. What else could I do? My crew was already at stations when Derek's assistant called me to the office. Derek sat behind his father's old desk, the one made from single walnut piece that old man Blackwood cut himself 40 years ago. "We're making some changes," Derek said, not even looking up from his computer. "Budget cuts. Your position's being eliminated effective immediately." "I've been here 18 years, I said. "And you've been adequately compensated for those years?" he replied. "Security will escort you out. Your personal items will be mailed. This is about Sarah." He looked up then, smiled that smile I wanted punching off his face. "This is about efficiency, Marcus. Nothing personal. Sign the separation agreement and you'll get 2 weeks' pay. Refuse and you get nothing." I signed because what choice did I have? No job meant no lawyer for the divorce surely coming. But as security walked me out past men I'd worked alongside nearly 2 decades, I saw Pete and others watching. They knew this wasn't about budget cuts. In a town like Riverside, everyone would know by dinner time. Pete caught my eye and shook his head slowly, looking genuinely sorry for me. At least someone gave a damn. The divorce papers arrived next week. Sarah hired the best lawyer in 3 counties, somehow affording a retainer that should have been impossible on our budget. She wanted the house, kids, alimony, and child support from a man who just lost his only income source. Judge Harrison, who'd coincidentally received campaign contributions from Derek Blackwood for years, decided I was an unstable influence on my children. Sarah's lawyer painted me violent and unpredictable, using my one anger moment when I punched the garage wall after being served papers. Never mind, I'd never laid hands on anyone in anger before. Never mind 18 years steady employment and coaching Jason's Little League team, and never missing a parent-teacher conference. Living in a storage unit isn't something you plan for. You start sleeping in your truck until cops tell you to move along. Then you couch surf until friends' wives get uncomfortable having a divorced man on their sofa. Then you find yourself at U-Store on Route 30 handing over 89 borrowed dollars from your brother-in-law for a climate-controlled unit. The night security guard Carl, an old-timer with gray hair and kind eyes, pretended not noticing when I started staying past closing time, sometimes giving me a nod as he did his rounds. I'd arranged my few possessions like furniture, the camping cot against one wall, my father's old tool chest as a table, battery-powered lantern for light. I kept clothes in plastic bins, showered at Planet Fitness down the road for $10 monthly. You learn making hot meals on camping stoves, washing dishes in buckets, living so quiet nobody knows you're there. I'd heat up cans of soup or beans, trying to make each dollar stretch as far as possible because my savings were disappearing faster than I could have imagined. Third week in that concrete box, I decided sorting through boxes Sarah threw in during divorce. Mostly junk she didn't want but knew I valued. Photo albums showing happier times that now felt like lies. My father's war medals from Korea that he'd earned before I was born. Christmas decorations we'd collected over years. Each one holding memories that now hurt to remember. Each box was a gut punch of memories from a life feeling like someone else's dream, like I'd been watching a movie of my life instead of actually living it. The briefcase was wedged behind ornament boxes, covered in dust like it had been there for years. Brown leather with combination lock and luggage tag stopping me cold. My name written in Uncle Raymond's shaky handwriting. But Raymond had been dead 8 months. How did this get here? I tried every combination I could think of. Birthdays, anniversaries, important dates. Nothing worked. Finally took a screwdriver to the lock, pried until metal gave way. The case opened with a pop echoing in the storage unit like a bang in the quiet space. Money. Neat stacks of hundreds wrapped in bank bands. I counted 3 times, hands shaking so bad I kept losing track. $50,000. More cash than I'd ever seen outside movies. But the letter changed everything. Raymond's handwriting on yellow legal paper, shaky but legible. Marcus, if you're reading this, you've lost everything. Good. A man can't rebuild until the foundation's clear. This money isn't charity and isn't pity. It's travel funds for what you need to do next. Drive to these coordinates in Montana. Park at the red gate on Timberwolf Road. Walk north 1 mile until you find the boulder looking like a bear's head. Behind it is truth about why your father died. I know you think I'm crazy. Everyone does. But crazy is just what they call you when you see things others don't want seeing. Your father didn't die in an accident at the mill. He was eliminated by Blackwood Sr. because he wouldn't sell his mineral rights share. Those rights are worth millions now and belong to you. I've spent 40 years gathering proof, building wealth from my own share, waiting for the right moment. But cancer's got me now and I won't live seeing justice. That's your job. The cabin has everything you need. Documents, recordings, photographs, even surprises about that wife of yours. Don't trust anyone, especially family. Your cousin David is in Blackwood's pocket, has been for years. And Marcus, your father would be proud of the man you've become, even if that man is sleeping in a storage unit right now. Sometimes the lowest point is just where you need being to see the stars. Make them pay for what they took from us, Raymond. I read the letter 6 times before it truly sank in. My father owned mineral rights. He was eliminated, and Raymond knew all along, but said nothing for 40 years. The coordinates pointed somewhere near Glacier National Park, Montana wilderness, where Raymond had lived like a hermit since Vietnam. I sat on that cot holding 50 grand while my stomach grumbled from hunger. This money could get me an apartment, a lawyer, maybe shared custody of my kids. It could solve immediate problems. But Raymond's words about my father's passing kept echoing in my head. What truth waited in Montana? What surprises about Sarah? The decision wasn't really a decision at all. Next morning, I bought a used Ford F-150 for $8,000 cash from a dealer on the edge of town who didn't ask questions when I paid in hundreds. Loaded it with camping gear, supplies, enough food for a week's drive. I told nobody where I was going. Who would I tell? My kids weren't allowed talking to me per court order. My friends had chosen sides in the divorce, and I wasn't on the winning team. Before leaving Pennsylvania, I drove past the house on Maple Street one last time. Jason's bike was in the driveway. Emily's bedroom window had new curtains, purple instead of pink she'd chosen with me 2 years ago. Sarah's car was gone, probably at Derek's downtown condo already. This life I'd built was continuing without me, like I'd never existed at all. Like 16 years of marriage and 2 kids meant nothing. The drive to Montana took 3 days of hard driving, stopping only for gas and catching a few hours sleep at rest stops. I'd pull into truck stops, nap for 3 or 4 hours, then push forward. The coordinates led me deep into Flathead County, where roads went from paved to gravel to barely more than deer tracks. Timberwolf Road was marked by a rusty, bullet-riddled sign shot through with holes. The kind of place where GPS gives up and tells you you're on your own. The red gate Raymond mentioned was more rust than red, with heavy chain and lock opening with the key he'd given me last Thanksgiving. I remembered him pressing it into my palm, his hand cold and bony, insisting I take it. Beyond the gate, the road disappeared entirely into thick forest. I parked the truck and started walking north using Compass app on my phone until even that lost signal. The forest was so thick sunlight barely reached ground. Every sound made me jump, wondering if bears or wolves watched from shadows. I counted steps trying to measure the mile Raymond mentioned. The boulder shaped like a bear's head sat in a clearing exactly around where 1 mile should be. It was massive, maybe 15 feet tall, and from the right angle really did look like a grizzly in profile. Behind it, hidden by overgrown brush, was a trail leading another 100 yards to a cabin that shouldn't exist out here in the middle of nowhere. This wasn't some ramshackle hermit's hut I'd expected. This was modern structure with solar panels on the roof, satellite dish, even a generator humming quietly behind a shed. The door was steel reinforced, opening with another key from Raymond's ring. Inside looked like combination of living space and detective's evidence room. One wall was covered with photographs, documents, and newspaper clippings going back 40 years, connected with red string like something from a crime show. Another wall held filing cabinets, each drawer meticulously labeled by year. A desk supported 3 computer monitors and surveillance equipment that must have cost thousands. The first thing I saw was my father's picture, young and smiling, standing next to old man Blackwood at the mill. They were holding papers, shaking hands like partners. The caption Raymond had written said Partnership Agreement 1976. Dad and Blackwood as equal partners, not employee and boss like I'd always believed. The documents told the story piece by piece. My father, Daniel Peterson, hadn't just worked at the mill. He'd been Blackwood's partner, having inherited mineral rights from my grandfather that turned out sitting on one of the largest natural gas deposits in Pennsylvania. Blackwood needed those rights to expand operations. My father agreed to partnership instead of outright sale because he wanted involvement in decisions. Then came police reports from 1982, industrial accident at the mill. Daniel Peterson crushed by lumber loader that mysteriously failed. The investigation was perfunctory, barely more than a formality. Case closed within a week with ruling of accidental end. But Raymond had found truth buried beneath official story. Maintenance records showing the loader had been serviced the day before, marked as fully functional. An insurance policy Blackwood took out on my father just 3 months earlier for substantial sum. A witness statement from a worker, now dead himself, who'd seen Blackwood arguing with my father about selling out completely just days before the accident. The witness had given statement to Raymond privately, but refused going to police, scared of losing his job. But that wasn't the biggest shock waiting in those files. In a folder marked SD for Sarah Driscoll were photographs freezing my blood. Sarah at age 16 with Derek Blackwood, who would have been 38 at the time. They were at a restaurant, sitting close, his hand on hers. Then more pictures through years, always at a distance, always careful not to be too obvious. Homecoming dances where Derek appeared in background. Graduation where he watched from parking lot. Then documents that knocked wind out of me. A bank account in Sarah's maiden name opened when she was 17, with regular deposits from a Blackwood Industries subsidiary company. $2,000 monthly for years, continuing even after we married. The recording equipment held dozens of files, all dated and labeled in Raymond's careful handwriting. I clicked on one from 3 years ago. Raymond's voice, old but clear, following SD to meeting with DB at Riverside Motel, room 23. Then Sarah's voice came through, unmistakable, even through slight static. "He's getting suspicious about money," she said. "How much longer do I have to play housewife?" Derek's voice responding, smooth and confident. "Until we can provoke him into something we can use in court. We need him discredited, not just divorced. An angry outburst we can point to. Make him look unstable, another recording from just last year, clearer audio quality. Sarah again, sounding tired. I've been married to him 16 years, Derek. I've had his children. I've pretended loving him so long, sometimes I forget I'm pretending. When can this be over?" Derek's reply was cold and calculating. "Those kids are your insurance policy, Sarah. He'll never fight back hard with them in the middle. He loves them too much. And once he's broken, really broken, the mineral rights revert to his next of kin. As his grieving widow or ex-wife with full custody, you'll control them until the kids turn 18. Then we split everything 50-50 like we agreed when you were 17. I sat in that cabin for hours listening to recording after recording. Pieces of my entire life rearranging themselves like a puzzle I'd been looking at upside down for 42 years. Sarah hadn't fallen out of love with me. She'd never loved me at all. She'd been placed in my life like a chess piece moved by Derek Blackwood. A 17-year-old girl groomed by a man more than twice her age, promised wealth and luxury to destroy me decades later. Every moment of our marriage had been performance. Every I love you had been scripted. Every tender moment had been acting. Even my children's births were part of the con. Insurance policies to keep me compliant. The financial documents were staggering. The mineral rights my father refused selling were now worth approximately $8 million after 40 years of natural gas extraction. Raymond had been quietly collecting lease payments on his portion for 4 decades, living like a pauper in this cabin while building a fortune. Every cent was documented, every transaction legal and clean and saved. And according to the will I found in the desk, every penny was now mine. Raymond had no other family except me. Everything he'd built was my inheritance. But Raymond had been smarter than just hoarding money. He'd built a legal case that would destroy Blackwood Industries completely. Environmental violations from illegal dumping, tax evasion schemes going back 30 years, bribery of local officials, including Judge Harrison, who'd ruled on my divorce, with bank records showing regular payments. Evidence of workplace safety violations covered up. Intimidation of workers who complained. Everything documented, photographed, recorded. 40 years of meticulous evidence gathering, waiting like a loaded tool. The last file on the computer was video message from Raymond himself, recorded just weeks before he died. He looked skeletal, eaten away by cancer, skin stretched tight over bones, but his eyes were sharp as ever, burning with purpose. "Marcus," he said to camera, "I'm sorry I couldn't tell you sooner, but they were watching. They've always been watching since your father died. If you're seeing this, you've lost everything. Your job, your wife, your kids, your home. Which means they think they've won. They're not watching anymore because they think you're knocking. Now you can fight back without them knowing until it's too late. The money's yours, legal and clear. But what you do with the evidence, that's your choice. You can take the fortune and disappear, start new life somewhere they'll never find you. Or you can finish what your father started. You can make them pay for 40 years of lies and theft and homicide. Either way, they lose. But only one way gives you back your children and your name. Choose wisely, nephew, and know that whatever you choose, your father would understand. I love you, kid. Always have. Raymond." I spent 3 full days in Raymond's cabin, memorizing every document, copying every file onto multiple drives, understanding the full scope of what the Blackwoods had done. The conspiracy went deeper than just my father's homicide. Workers injured and denied compensation. Families destroyed when breadwinners were fired for complaining. Environmental damage poisoning local water supplies. Decades of corruption and cruelty, all documented by my paranoid uncle, who turned out to be the only sane person seeing clearly. The choice Raymond talked about wasn't really a choice at all. Running away with money would mean letting them win, letting my father's homicide go unpunished, letting my children grow up believing their father was a failure who abandoned them, letting Derek and Sarah keep everything they'd stolen. No, the choice was clear. I was going to war, but this time I had weapons. The drive back to Pennsylvania felt different. I wasn't running from something anymore. I was driving toward justice with a truck full of evidence and a bank account finally giving me power to fight back. My first stop was FBI field office in Pittsburgh. I walked in at 9 in the morning and asked to speak with someone about corruption and homicide. Agent Patricia Knowles listened to my story with the kind of stone face making me think she'd heard every crazy conspiracy theory imaginable. Her expression was polite but skeptical. Then I showed her the documents. Her face changed immediately. She called in 2 more agents, then her supervisor. Within an hour, I was in a conference room with 6 federal agents going through everything Raymond had collected. The investigation took 4 months. 4 long months of secret grand juries, of forensic accountants digging through 40 years of Blackwood Industries books, of federal agents interviewing everyone who'd ever done business with Derek. I stayed quiet, living in a small Pittsburgh apartment paid for with Raymond's money, following my lawyer's advice to remain invisible while justice machinery slowly ground forward. I bought groceries, went to the gym, lived like a ghost while the case built. The arrests happened on a Tuesday morning in July. Derek Blackwood was taken from his country club in handcuffs, right off the golf course in front of his buddies. 3 city councilmen were arrested at City Hall. Judge Harrison was taken from his chambers. Even the police chief who'd closed my father's accident report so quickly got arrested. The charges ranged from tax evasion to conspiracy to environmental crimes costing millions in cleanup to bribery of public officials. The homicide couldn't be prosecuted because old man Blackwood was long dead, but his son would pay for continuing the cover-up and conspiracy for 40 years. Sarah's arrest was different. They took her from elementary school parking lot where she was picking up Emily. My daughter watched her mother get handcuffed and put in a federal car. Sarah called me from jail that evening, first time we'd spoken in months. "How could you do this to your children?" she screamed through phone. "They'll see their mother arrested. They're traumatized." "Their mother was never real," I told her calmly. "You were a fiction, a character played by a girl Derek groomed when she was 16. The kids deserved knowing who their father really is, not the failure you tried painting me as for the judge." She broke down then, the truth finally cracking her perfect performance. She'd been promised millions to destroy me, promised the life she'd always wanted, wealth and travel and luxury, All she had to do was marry the son of the man Derek's father eliminated, have his children, and wait for the right moment to take everything. She admitted receiving payments since high school to get close to me, to make me fall in love with her, to marry me, to have children with me, all so the Blackwoods could eventually steal what my father had died protecting. The trial made national news. Small-town lumber dynasty collapses in decades-long conspiracy of homicide, theft, and corruption, read the headlines. News trucks parked outside the courthouse for weeks. Derek got 15 years federal time. Sarah got 5 years, but would likely serve 2 with good behavior. The other conspirators fell like dominoes, each racing to make deals and testify against others to reduce their sentences. Judge Harrison got disbarred in 7 years. The police chief got 5 years. The whole corrupt system that had crushed me came tumbling down. But the real victory came when I got my kids back. Jason and Emily had been living with Sarah's mother during trial. First time I saw them after everything came out, we met at a family court-appointed therapist's office. Jason was 15 now, taller than me, and he wouldn't meet my eyes. Emily was 12, and she ran to me crying, asking if Mommy was really a bad person who never loved Daddy. Your mother made terrible choices, I told them, holding them both while trying not to cry myself. But that doesn't mean she doesn't love you. People are complicated. They can do bad things and still have good in them. You're not responsible for her choices or mine. You're just kids who deserve better than this mess. It took time. Months of therapy for all 3 of us, individual and family sessions. Jason's anger slowly melted into understanding as he learned the truth about what happened. Emily's confusion settled into acceptance. We found our rhythm as a different kind of family, one built on truth instead of lies. I used Raymond's money to start my own lumber business, Peterson & Sons, even though Jason swears he's going to be an engineer, not a mill worker. I hired Pete and the good men from Blackwood Industries, giving them better wages and actual respect and profit sharing. Carl, the security guard who'd pretended not noticing me living in that storage unit, became my night shift supervisor. The storage unit where I lived is still mine. I pay the $89 every month and sometimes go there just to remember where I came from. To remember that the worst day of your life can lead to your salvation if you're brave enough to follow a dead man's map and crazy enough to believe that justice can wait 40 years and still show up when you need it most. Uncle Raymond was right about everything. Sometimes you need losing it all to find truth. My father died, refusing giving up what was rightfully his, and it took 40 years for justice coming calling. Raymond lived as a hermit, gathering evidence and wealth, sacrificing his own comfort and sanity in everyone's eyes to make sure truth would eventually surface. And me? I went from eating cold beans in a storage unit to owning an $8 million inheritance and a successful business. But real wealth isn't in the bank account. It's in Jason's laugh when I help him with calculus homework he insists he doesn't need help with. It's in Emily's smile when she shows me her science project about sustainable forestry. It's in knowing my father would be proud, that Raymond's sacrifice meant something, that sometimes the worst thing happening to you is actually a gift wrapped in barbed wire. Sarah said I'd die poor and alone. She was wrong on both counts, but more importantly, she showed me that living a lie surrounded by people is the real loneliness. Truth, even when it destroys everything you thought you knew, is freedom. And freedom, I learned in a 5x10 storage unit eating cold beans, is worth more than all the mineral rights in Pennsylvania. My name is Marcus Peterson. I was nobody special, just a lumber mill supervisor raising his kids right. But sometimes nobody special is exactly who needs standing up and fighting back. Sometimes the ordinary guy is the one who brings down an empire built on lies and homicide.